The silence in the grand ballroom of the Pierre Hotel didn't fall gradually, it slammed into the room like a physical weight. One moment, New York's elite were clinking crystal glasses and discussing mergers, the next, a collective gasp sucked the air out of the room. There, clinging to the pristine tuxedo trousers of Adrian Thorne, a man known as the Titan of Wall Street, a man who hadn't smiled in public in 5 years, was a child who looked like she had crawled out of a dumpster. She was tiny, perhaps 6 years old, her knees scraped and bleeding, her oversized coat swallowing her frail frame. But it wasn't her appearance that froze the blood of everyone watching. It was what she screamed, her voice cracking with a terror no child should ever know. "Please, Mr. Thorne. You have to buy me. My stepfather, he's signing the papers right now outside. He's selling me to the man with the scar for $10,000. Please, you have the most money. Offer him 11. I'll work. I'll clean your shoes. Just don't let him take me." Adrian Thorne, a man who could crush corporations with a phone call, stood paralyzed. He looked down. The girl's eyes were a piercing, impossible shade of violet, eyes that mirrored a ghost from his past he thought he had buried. The desperate grip of her grimy fingers on his leg wasn't just staining his suit, it was crushing his heart. Security guards rushed forward, their radios crackling, reaching to tear the child away. "Get off him, you little rat," one shouted. The girl flinched, shielding her face, expecting a blow. That flinch changed everything. It transformed Adrian from a statue into a protector. He raised a single hand, stopping the guards in their tracks with a look of lethal coldness. Then, he dropped to one knee, something Adrian Thorne never did, and looked the trembling girl in the eye. "What is your name?" he whispered. "Lily," she sobbed. "And he's outside?" Adrian stood up, his face darkening with a rage that terrified even his own bodyguards. "Show me." The sequence of events that followed happened in a blur of violence and negotiation. Adrian marched into the rainy alley behind the hotel, his entourage trailing like a storm front. There, cowering under an awning, was a greasy man counting a stack of cash handed to him by a shadowy figure in a black sedan. The moment the stepfather, a man named Frank, saw the billionaire, he didn't look ashamed, he looked greedy. The transaction was halted not by police, but by Adrian's raw intimidation. He didn't offer 11,000. He offered Frank a choice: leave the country tonight with a payoff that would keep him drunk for a decade, or spend the next 20 years in a prison cell Adrian would personally pay to make miserable. Frank took the check, signed a napkin relinquishing guardianship, and vanished into the night. Adrian swept Lily into his arms, her filthy coat ruining his Italian silk, and carried her into his limousine. But the relief was short-lived. For the first week, Adrian's penthouse, a cold, glass fortress in the sky, became a battleground of trauma. Lily wouldn't sleep in a bed, she slept in the closet, hoarding bread rolls from dinner under her pillow. Adrian, a man who managed billions in assets, found himself completely helpless against the weeping of a 6-year-old. He needed help. He called Elena, his former executive assistant whom he had fired 2 years ago for caring too much about his personal life. Elena, a woman of fiery spirit and soft heart, arrived ready to yell at him, but the sight of the terrified Lily disarmed her. Together, they formed a tentative, awkward truce. Elena managed the emotional fallout, bathing Lily, reading to her, and decoding her nightmares, while Adrian managed the logistics, buying every toy in FAO Schwartz and hiring top child psychologists. Slowly, the ice began to thaw. We saw moments of heartbreaking tenderness. The first time Lily laughed was when Adrian, the stoic billionaire, attempted to braid her hair and ended up tying his own fingers in knots. We saw Adrian skipping a board meeting that would have netted him millions, just because Lily was afraid of a thunderstorm and asked him to stay. A romance began to bloom in the quiet moments between Adrian and Elena, shared coffees at 3 a.m. after Lily finally fell asleep, glances across the dinner table that held a weight of unspoken history and new hope. Adrian was becoming a father. He was becoming a man again. 3 months later, the day of the official adoption hearing arrived. The penthouse was filled with sunshine and nervous excitement. Adrian had bought Lily a yellow dress, the color of sunflowers. They were about to leave for court when the elevator doors dinged open. But it wasn't the driver. It was a squad of NYPD officers, followed by a smug-looking lawyer and a camera crew. Adrian Thorne, the lead detective, barked, unholstering handcuffs. "You are under arrest for child abduction, kidnapping, and the illegal purchase of a minor." Behind the police stood Frank. He looked cleaner now, wearing a cheap suit, wiping fake tears for the cameras. He bought her. Frank screamed for the news crews. "He used his money to steal my daughter. I have the check. I have the recording of him offering me money to leave. He's a monster." The napkin Adrian had Frank sign wasn't a legal document. The check Adrian wrote was traceable proof of a transaction. In his haste to save her, Adrian had walked into a trap. As the police slammed Adrian against the wall, handcuffing him in front of a screaming Lily, Frank stepped forward with a smirk that only Adrian could see. He didn't want Lily back. He wanted a settlement worth 10 times what Adrian had paid. But as child services tore Lily from Elena's arms, Adrian realized with horror that the law was on Frank's side. Lily was being returned to the monster who sold her. The following weeks were a descent into hell. Adrian was out on bail, but his reputation was incinerated. The board of directors ousted him from his own company. His assets were frozen pending the investigation. But Adrian didn't care about the money. He sat in his empty penthouse, the silence deafening, haunting. Elena was the only one who stayed. She liquidated her own savings to hire a private investigator, digging into Frank's past. "We can't win this in court, Adrian," Elena said one night, grabbing his shoulders, forcing him to look at her. "Frank has the law. We need the truth." The investigation revealed a dark web. Frank wasn't just a bad stepfather, he was a mule for a loan shark syndicate. The reason he needed the money initially wasn't debt, it was to buy his way into a smuggling ring. And Lily? She wasn't his stepdaughter. The DNA test results Elena managed to secure from an old medical file proved Frank had no relation to her mother. Lily had been kidnapped as a toddler, her mother killed in a robbery that Frank orchestrated. Armed with this information, Adrian felt the fire of the Titan return. He wasn't fighting for a merger, he was fighting for a soul. He and Elena prepared to ambush Frank, not with lawyers, but with undeniable proof. They tracked Frank to a rundown motel on the edge of the city where he was keeping Lily until the heat died down. Adrian kicked open the door to room 104, police backup waiting for his signal. But the room was empty. No Frank. No Lily. Just a single, burner phone ringing on the stained mattress. Adrian picked it up. Frank's voice was jagged, panicked. "You pushed too hard, Thorne. The people I owe, they don't care about custody battles. They care about collateral. I gave her to them. She's gone. You want her? Come to the shipping yards. Alone. And bring the bearer bonds you have in your safe. All of them." The line went dead. Adrian looked at Elena. The police backup was for an arrest, not a hostage extraction against organized crime. If they went in with sirens, Lily would be killed. Adrian looked at Elena, terror warring with resolve in his eyes. "I have to go alone," he said, his voice trembling. "No," Elena said, grabbing his hand. "We go together. Or we don't go at all." The climax took place in the industrial labyrinth of the shipping docks under the cover of a heavy fog. Adrian and Elena moved through the shadows of towering shipping containers. They found them near the water's edge, Frank, looking terrified, arguing with 3 armed men, while Lily was tied up in the back of a van, looking pale and unconscious. Adrian stepped out, holding a briefcase. "Let her go," he commanded, his voice echoing off the steel. "The money!" Frank yelled. Adrian threw the briefcase. It slid across the wet pavement. One of the thugs opened it. It was empty. "I don't negotiate with traffickers," Adrian said calmly. Before the men could raise their weapons, bright floodlights blinded them. Adrian hadn't brought the police, he had brought his private security detail, ex-Special Forces operatives who had been shadowing him since he lost the company. In seconds, the thugs were disarmed and on the ground. Frank tried to run, scrambling toward the water, but Adrian caught him. For a moment, standing on the edge of the dark water, Adrian held Frank by the collar. The rage in him demanded he drop the man. It would be so easy. It would be justice. But then he heard a faint, weak voice from the van. "Daddy?" It was the first time Lily had called him that. Adrian looked at the shivering criminal in his hands, then at the little girl who needed him to be a hero, not a killer. He dragged Frank back and threw him at the feet of the arriving police officers. "He's all yours," Adrian spat. "Take him away for life." Elena was already at the van, cutting Lily loose. When Adrian reached them, Lily didn't flinch. She launched herself into his arms, burying her face in his neck. Adrian fell to his knees in the dirt, holding her, weeping openly for the first time in his adult life. Elena wrapped her arms around both of them, sealing the bond. 6 months later. The boardroom of Thorne Enterprises was full again. Adrian sat at the head of the table, reinstated as CEO. But something was different. The cold, austere office now had a corner filled with colorful drawings and a beanbag chair. Elena sat to his right, not as an assistant, but as his partner, in business and in life. Adrian stood up to address the shareholders. "We made record profits this quarter," he began, his voice strong but warm. "But the greatest investment this firm made this year wasn't in tech or oil. It was in people. We are launching the Lily Foundation today, dedicated to providing legal aid and safe housing for children in the foster system." He looked toward the glass wall of the conference room. Pressing her nose against the glass from the outside was Lily, healthy, happy, and wearing a school uniform, waving frantically. Adrian waved back, a genuine smile lighting up his face. The journey hadn't been about saving a girl, it had been about the girl saving him. We often think power comes from wealth, status, or the ability to command rooms of people. But Adrian's story proves that true power is the courage to be vulnerable, to fight for the defenseless, and to let love change your heart. Money can buy a building, but it cannot buy a home. It can buy a bed, but not a good night's sleep. Family isn't always blood. Sometimes, it's the people who find you in the rain and refuse to let go. If this story touched your heart, and if you believe that every child deserves a safe home and a fighting chance, please hit that like button. It helps us share this message with more people. And don't forget to subscribe, because we have so many more stories of hope, redemption, and love waiting just for you. You never know whose life you might change just by listening.